Hi, everybody. My name is Rochelle,
And I'm Jeff.
and this is Burnout Banter.
So, Rochelle, can you believe that nearly 60% of people who work in the construction industry report struggling with some sort of mental health issue? I'm sure you can believe that.
I can. Actually, AGC frequently does like a mental health awareness. I think they annually do a mental health awareness week now because it's gotten so bad in recent years.
Yeah. Um, the sad thing is, only a third of people, after having reported that they have mental health issues, said they would feel comfortable talking to their employers about it.
I can believe that as someone who has frequently struggled to communicate my issues with my employers. I can see how that would be a difficult thing for a lot of people to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So, for a long time, burnout wasn't really viewed as a mental health thing or a disease or anything like that, but that's changed recently. So, that's what we're going to do today is take a deep dive into burnout, learn a little bit about the history of it and um, some factors that when added together can lead to it and what you can do to get yourself out of it if you are burned out. So
Perfect.
sound fun?
That sounds great.
So
Let's
before
do
we
it.
jump into today's episode, remember to subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Amazon, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen so that you can stay up to date with the latest banter. So in 1974, psychologist Herbert Freudenberger, that's a mouthful, became the first person to coin burnout in a medical journal after he studied the lasting impacts of excessive stress and workplace demands on individuals that resulted in things like depression and anxiety. So, mental health challenges.
Got
Um,
it.
for a long time, though, it's been a blurry cultural concept that defied people's attempts to define it. So there's been hundreds of studies about it, but nobody could really agree on what burnout was.
Interesting. That
So
also doesn't surprise me.
no,
Mental health in general seems to be something that we really struggle to define or even accept. Like, like for example, depression, I think is the most obvious one where people are like, no, you're just sad, just smile.
yeah,
Right? Because we just don't understand, especially if you don't feel it yourself. Like with physical illnesses, you can see someone decline or you can see them in a boot if they like rolled their ankle or something, but you can't see mental illness, which I think is why we struggle so much with accepting it and with defining it because it manifests differently
yeah, I agree.
everywhere.
And even, when I've been around people who are dealing with it, I do struggle to relate because it's not really something I've experienced before. Burnout, I have experienced that one, but depression and anxiety, not so much. So
Or even if you have, it's hard to connect. I freeze when I come across someone who is open about, what they're experiencing because what they're experiencing is likely different. My anxiety is way different, for example, than my best friend's.
oh,
Like
interesting.
she has such anxiety that sometimes like she won't even leave the house. Whereas I have high like freak out anxiety. So I go through all the possible scenarios and then like plunge into things. And that's where my anxiety comes from is like I think it through, but then I stop thinking
Okay.
and I know I'm gonna do that. But so I pause because when people are like, I'm anxious, like what kind? How do I talk to you? How do I not minimize this? Which
Yeah.
maybe is a good way to respond, but sometimes it comes across as,
Not interested.
yeah,
Yeah. So in May 2019, the World Health Organization actually defined burnout and stated that they believe it should be considered a disease um, in their newest version of the International Classification of Diseases, which sounds like a really fun read.
that sounds like something that would kick my anxiety into gear.
Sounds like something I would read if I wanted to go to sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. And have nightmares.
So they define it as a syndrome conceptualized as resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed.
Interesting. Uh
They don't say who successfully managed it.
yeah, there's some vagueness in this that I'm struggling with. Uh Two things. Yes, who is responsible for managing it? And also workplace stress specifically, because I feel like burnout comes from so many places, and work is definitely the biggest one for a lot of us. But our personal lives can go so off the rails, and if that combines with other things, it's going to burn you out very quickly. So it's interesting to me that they specifically included workplace and didn't just say chronic stress.
Yeah, they were very, they even went so far as to point out that it should not be used or applied to describe experiences in other areas of your life.
Do they say why?
I didn't do that much research, but mostly because I don't agree with it.
Fair.
Maybe it would
Okay,
be
something
interesting
I'll
to learn
research.
more about it. But I think when I was growing up, right, my grandma she had Alzheimer's and dementia and was in a long-term care facility, and she lived that way for 10, 12 years. I don't remember exactly how long, but I think about my parents going to visit her and dealing with that every single weekend. And that has to impact you, right? Like, you add that to stress from work, to kids' activities, and all the stuff that we do as adults that keeps us busy. And yeah, that's why I struggle to accept that as well.
Yeah, human lives are so complicated, and it's so much more than work. I disagree. Sorry, World Health Organization. I know you're much smarter people than I am, but respectfully, no.
Yeah. So they also break it down into 3 factors. So there's 3 things that have to be present for you to be burned out.
Okay.
The first is you have to be feeling energy depletion or exhaustion.
Okay.
You have to be increasing your mental distance from your job, or you have feelings of negativism or cynicism related to your job.
Okay.
And then the last one is reduced professional efficacy. So you're not having the impact or being as efficient as you want to be, or accomplishing what you want to accomplish.
That is a very concise list. When we talk about burnout, our slide in our presentation is like 50 bullets of things that can cause burnout. And I don't know if they all fit straight into these buckets, especially like reduced professional efficacy. Doesn't seem like a cause. It seems like an effect of burnout. So I'm concerned
I
over
could see
that
it.
one.
I could see, if I'm doing something and I don't feel like it's having an impact, or it's really hard for me to do it when there's a much easier way I could be doing it.
Right.
That's how we do things.
My favorite phrase.
I could see how that would lead you to get over your job, right, as a starting point, and then maybe the other 2 come.
Okay, I can see that. I think I went the other way, where like when you burn out and you stop giving your all to your job or any aspect of your life, you get frustrated with yourself. It's that like vicious cycle we talked about a few episodes back, where you can't do a great job, but you're frustrated with yourself for not being able to do a great job. So maybe I just took that differently.
Yeah. Okay. I think they're a little vague intentionally, right? Because the law could fit into that.
Right.
So there, one thing you might be wondering, right, is, okay, we talk about burnout a lot. How do I actually know if I'm burned out? If it's a
Yeah.
disease, there's got to be a way to diagnose the disease.
Right.
And
How
there
we do
actually
that?
is.
Excellent. Tell us
So
more.
there's a test you can take called the Maslick Burnout Inventory. So Maslick was one of the first people to also study burnout and identify some things that are indicators that you're in it.
Okay.
So I
That's
thought it
nice.
would be fun to see if Rochelle is burned out today.
Oh no. I don't feel burnt out, so maybe I'll pass. But maybe I'll be
There's no pass
surprised.
or fail.
Is it like a scale? Like a
Yeah, so I'm gonna ask you a question, and then you're gonna score it 0, never, to 6 every single day. So
Oh,
0 is
okay.
never. 1 is at least a few times a year. 2 is at least once a month. 3 is several times a month. 4 is once a week. 5 is several times a week. And 6 is every day.
Okay.
Makes sense. I'm sure you're
Makes
gonna
sense.
remember all
I'm not going to remember all that.
that. Okay.
I was already thinking when you got to 3, I should be writing this down, but that's okay.
Okay, I can remind you. So, do you feel emotionally exhausted because of your work?
At the present, no. But I would say that happens a few times a year,
Okay,
whatever that number was, 2.
that was 1.
Oh, okay.
Once a month would be 2.
Oh, I don't think it's that frequent.
Okay.
Not anymore.
I feel worn out at the end of a working day.
Yes.
Every
Several
day?
times a week.
Several times a week.
I wouldn't go every day, but several times a week.
I feel tired as soon as I get up in the morning and see a new working day stretched out in front of me.
Uh, also several times a week. I
Okay.
start out so well, like Monday, Tuesday with so much energy, and then you get to like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it just gets harder and harder. I need like a midweek weekend.
Wednesday off.
Wednesday off instead of Friday off. That's what I'm going to start doing.
I can easily understand the actions of my colleagues and supervisors.
Usually,
So every day, several times a week.
I would say every day. There's rare occasions where I don't understand. I might not always agree, but I usually understand.
Okay. I get the feeling that I treat some clients' colleagues impersonally as if they were objects.
No,
So never.
never. Yeah. At least I try not to. People are very important as people to me. I try not to just like, I don't believe in transactional relationships, which is maybe why my business is where it is.
Working with people the whole day is stressful for me.
Yes, every day. Not that I don't enjoy the people I work with, but we've talked about being introverts and my battery just dies.
Okay. I deal with other people's problems successfully.
Yes, frequently. I'd say most of the week. I wouldn't give that every day because sometimes that would mean I'm a perfect human and I'm not a perfect human.
I feel burned out because of my work. This one's a bit on the nose.
Yeah. Maybe once a month.
Okay.
It depends. I cycle. I will not lie to anybody and say I've figured out the burnout thing and I've never burnt out again. But I cycle a few times a year when things get really rough. So
Okay.
on average, we'll give that a once a month.
Okay. Next is I feel that I influence other people positively through my work.
I try. I feel like I don't know if I can answer that one. But my clients are
Or
very
asking if you
appreciative.
feel like you do, not if you do.
I feel like I do.
Every day, several times a week.
Again, I can't go with every day because that would mean I'm perfect. So several times a week.
I have become more callous to people since I started doing this job.
I'm a proposal person, Jeff, absolutely.
Several times a
Starry-eyed.
week, once a week.
Oh no, that would
Okay.
be an everyday.
Okay.
Sorry.
You're okay. No need to apologize.
I think I'm more apologizing to the people I work with because I don't want them to take this personally. It is not a them thing, it's a me thing. So if you're listening, I do appreciate you.
I'm afraid that my work makes me emotionally harder.
A little bit, but I also think my work makes me a little bit creative and it does good things. So maybe somewhere in the middle on that one.
Several times a month. Once a month.
Once a month. I don't think I'm that emotionally hard. I don't know. I have a thick skin, so.
Is another loaded question. I feel full of energy.
Wow. All right, Maslak. Well, it's Thursday while we're recording. which means I've reached the end of the week.
So
And
maybe it's like a couple times a week.
yeah. I'm
Yeah.
like frenzied. Monday, Tuesday, you want me to do something? Great. If you need me to do something Thursday, Friday, it's gonna take a while.
So next one is I feel frustrated by my work.
Couple times a month.
Okay.
Every proposal has a problem, even if it's smooth sailing.
I get the feeling that I work too hard.
Absolutely. Not only do I get the feeling, I am told that frequently.
Everyday thing or
Several times a week.
okay.
I don't know. Yeah, several times a week.
I'm not really interested in what is going on with many of my colleagues.
I think I come across that way, but I'm not. I'm very interested in what's going on with my colleagues.
So never.
Wait, would that be I'm never interested in what's going on with them?
It means you're never not interested in what's going on with
This is
them.
a terrible survey, double negatives. Sure, never.
Being in direct contact with people at work is too stressful.
I do find being around people too often at work is stressful. Again, I would throw that in the middle somewhere, like once a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have 6 more questions.
All right. I hope our listeners are also taking this with us, or they've Googled it and are doing it also.
I find it easy to build a relaxed atmosphere in my working environment.
I do, actually. I'm very good at riding my energy waves.
Okay. So every day.
Yeah. But well, yeah, we'll go with every day. I feel like I've gotten good at that.
I feel stimulated when I've been working closely with my colleagues. And your dogs don't count.
Dang it. How did you know I was going to say that? I work better on my own. I feel most fulfilled when I have taken the input from my colleagues and done what I need to do with it. So again, sorry to my clients. This sounds really bad, but no, I do not feel most stimulated.
So never? Or are there times when
And there are times when like we jive, we have really good. So maybe a few times
once
a
a
year.
month, several times a month, a few times a year?
Once a month is probably.
I have achieved many rewarding objectives in my work.
I have. I don't know if you could. That's a weird thing to put a time frame on. Again, I'm really concerned over the survey creation here. Several times a month.
Okay. I feel as if I'm at my wit's end.
Several times a month. Absolutely.
In my work, I'm very relaxed when dealing with emotional problems.
Absolutely not. I do not handle emotions very well at all.
So never?
Yeah.
Okay. Don't sound so dejected. It's okay.
These are things I'm trying to work on and putting them all out there for the world to hear. I'm doing this for everybody, just so you all know. It's because I care about you.
Yeah, that's a good thing I found the quiz, so this way I don't have to take it.
Yeah, now I'm gonna have to do this to you. Just be ready.
I have the feeling that my colleagues blame me for some of their problems.
I don't think they blame me for anything. I think we have good team environments, but I do shoulder the burden of like their annoyance, which I don't think is ever actually directed at me, but that's how my brain interprets it. So a couple times a year,
Okay.
I feel that way.
All right. So what you do with these, so you add up your score for questions 1, 2, 3, 6, 8, 13, 14, 16, and 20.
Right.
And if your score is less than 17, you have a low degree of occupational exhaustion. And if it's higher than 30, you have a high degree of emotional exhaustion. And if it's in the middle, it's moderate.
Okay.
So yours was 32.
Okay.
So you are exhausted.
I thought I was going to be in the middle. I thought I was doing really
You're
well.
close to the middle. You're not too high. But
No, I thought I was going to be like 20, 22.
would have been
Okay.
good. We would maybe if we took this on Monday or Tuesday, it would have been lower.
I might have been totally hunky-dory Monday or Tuesday. Well, that's interesting.
So then for depersonalization or loss of empathy, you add up 5, 10, 11, 15, and 22. And if you're lower than 5, you have a low degree of depersonalization. If you're higher than 12, you have a high degree. And if you're in the middle, you're moderate. So you're at 9. So you're moderately depersonalized.
Okay.
So then the last one is personal accomplishment. You add up 4, 7, 9, 12, 17, 18, 19, and 21. I'm reading these numbers for people who are taking this quiz with us, not that you care.
No, I realized that afterward.
If you're less than 33, you have a low degree of personal accomplishment. If you're higher than 40, you have a high degree of personal accomplishment. And
Okay.
you were at 32, so you're just slightly lower than.
Man,
So
I
you
thought
are,
I did good on that too. I'm over here like overachieving in my brain. Weird.
yeah. So we were talking about before we started recording that we were both feeling a little burned out. This is probably why.
Yeah, no, I was trying to figure out if I am burnt out because I feel like I'm lagging and I feel kind of lazy. And you have now validated I am in fact not lazy. My body and my mind are just screaming at me
Rest.
to take a break. Ooh.
Yeah, so they talk occupational exhaustion is typically connected to a relationship with work that's perceived as difficult, tiring, stressful. Personal accomplish is a feeling that acts as a safety valve and contributes to bringing about a balance if occupational exhaustion and depersonalization occurs. So if you're feeling like you're accomplishing a lot of really great things, it can offset the other two.
Okay.
So it ensures fulfillment in the workplace and a positive view of professional achievement.
I'm trying to organize my thoughts around that. Because I feel like that is dangerously close to tying in this people who are really good at the work they do are just rewarded with more work. So do you get like or do you think you get kind of a personal high when you achieve something that you've worked really hard for, and that keeps you going longer, but eventually contributes to a deeper burnout? It's like a little sugar rush almost, and then you crash later.
That's a good question. I mean, to me, I don't know what they would say about this, but to me, the sense is if you're getting accomplishment from what you're doing, it doesn't really matter what anybody else thinks. Right?
Okay.
Like if I feel good about what I'm doing, then I feel accomplished, and it can help me offset some of the other two areas
Okay.
if I'm having issues in those two areas.
I can see that. I'm just thinking like I turned in a really amazing proposal. I'm riding that high. It was creative. It was beautiful. The team did great. And I'm plunging in and saying yes to the next 3. And then I get into those and they're not as great as that other one. And now I'm slogging through 3 proposals that I probably shouldn't have said yes to in the first place because I should have just taken a break.
I think what was interesting in your response, right, was that you associate the personal accomplishment with the delivery of the proposal.
Right.
And so you only experienced it maybe a couple of times a month. When I would guess if you broke it down even further than that, you're probably accomplishing great things along the way to get to that point where the proposal is kind of this great thing at the end. And maybe if you acknowledge those a little bit more, you might not feel so limited in that area.
Okay. I'll have to report back on how that goes.
Yeah.
At the moment, I'm like, I created a really cool graphic, but everything else is just like standard. So there's nothing to get excited about.
Yeah, and that's classic beating yourself up versus acknowledgement, right? If I'm being really hard on myself for what I haven't done, then I'm not celebrating what I have done, which is going to make me feel like I'm not accomplishing things when I really am.
Exactly. Thanks for coaching.
You're welcome.
I needed a reminder.
Because you're doing great things every day, right?
If you say so. Just kidding. Yes,
I know.
I'm doing great things every day.
I know. So there are 5 profiles that are based off the results of this test or quiz or whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
So if you're engaged, you have a positive score on all 3.
Okay, I'm not engaged.
Which is what all, I mean, when you look at this from the employer's side, right? What we want is happy, engaged people.
Right.
Then if you score high on not being exhausted, not being negative or cynical towards work and feeling like you're accomplishing a lot, you're going to be engaged. I think that makes sense.
Perfect sense. Absolutely.
If you have a strong negative score on cynicism only, you are disengaged from work.
Okay.
So that could be you're not fully burned out, you're just disengaged.
Is that like a maybe teetering on the edge of burnout? Like you are checking out to protect yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you have a strong negative score on professional efficacy, that means you feel like you're ineffective.
Oh, I like that. Okay.
And then if you have a strong negative score on exhaustion, it means that you feel overextended, which I think would be a perfect word to describe how you feel.
I literally just thought of all of the things that I have to do after this, and I think you're right.
And then obviously, if you have a negative score on all 3, you are burned out.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of the opposite of engaged.
Makes sense. So should employers, going back to, the definition that the World Health Organization created, like the onus of this is on who? Like, should employers be checking in with their employees once a year with like this survey, or should you be self-analyzing with this survey and then like taking the data to your employer? Or how can our listeners use this information?
That's a great question. Our burning question is kind of in line with that. So maybe we want to save
Excellent.
that for later.
I totally paid attention to the outline. I love when you surprise me with a burning question.
The question.
No, I would never.
Yeah, so we'll circle back to that in a second.
Okay.
Or if that works for you.
That does. The next question is, I guess, like, what do we do with this information personally?
Yeah, so I mean, it's good to get a feel for where you're at, because once we're aware of where we're at, then we can start to address it. So if you do feel like you're negative in 1 or 2 of these areas, I think there are some things you can do to try to move the needle in there for you. So, we talked about if you had a little bit low personal accomplishment score, just acknowledging more the things that you do every day that will make you feel like you're accomplishing more. If you're overextended, how can you maybe say no to a few things or take your to-do list and cross a few off?
We have a whole episode on that. But going back really quickly to acknowledging yourself, like if you really struggle to do that, what's like a quick tip? Sorry to throw that at you. I think you kind of talked about like writing down things daily. But how can you just start training your brain to be more kind in acknowledging your accomplishments.
Yeah, I mean, writing it down is probably the best thing you can do, and start with 1 or 2 a day and then build up to 5. And I guarantee you'll view your day differently than you did when you weren't doing it. If you're doing too much of the negative self-talk, we've talked about in the past, having a baby picture of yourself,
Right.
that try to talk to that baby like you're talking to yourself, and I bet you won't be able to. So yeah, just bringing some awareness to the fact that we actually all do a lot of great things every day. And the more we practice acknowledging, and the easier it gets. It's not easy to start, especially if you don't do it very often.
No.
It's hard. And yeah, so that's where the practice of just trying to find 2 a day to acknowledge yourself work, and starts to help you look for it, when you're not looking for it right now.
Okay.
If I
And
know
I-
I'm gonna have to write down 5 of them, or I don't have to, but if I know I want to write down 5 of them at the end of the day, then I'm probably going to be looking for things during the day, and it's going to help me see them more than I would be otherwise.
Right. My first instinct is to go for like the low hanging fruit. Like, I did get up today and I went to work. I had a choice not to,
Yeah,
but I
absolutely.
showed up. So
Yeah, but that's
just to throw that out there.
yeah, that's a huge thing that you just said there, right? Because then we're going to caveat it, right? It has to be the big accomplishments. It doesn't. It can be if you accomplish something that you would consider a big thing for the day, you could acknowledge every step along the way that got you there, because it's acknowledging the baby steps that are going to give us the momentum and the motivation to keep going towards the bigger goal.
Right. It's
So
kind
getting
of
out of bed is something to
Yes.
acknowledge yourself for, because some people don't.
I have definitely chosen not to before. So it's a big thing. I just, for my proposal people, I think sometimes we don't see the forest for the trees, because our focus is on, like you said earlier, getting that proposal done, and we don't pay attention to all the little things that we had to do to get that proposal out the door. So
And there are a lot of little things.
there are so many little things from kickoff to submission that we should be acknowledging. So just wanted to throw that out there for those of you who are like me.
Yeah.
I need a little help with that mental shift. What else, Jeff?
Well, so if you are burned out, say you get a negative score in all 3, some things you can do.
Okay.
Sometimes you can do this on your own. Sometimes you need help. So depending on how bad it is, sometimes, we may try to do some things on ourselves, but, it's not a bad thing to reach out and ask for help from people, whether it's your employer, like you mentioned earlier, or somebody else who can, maybe outside of your normal sphere of influence that you can talk openly to.
Okay.
So first thing you can do is prioritize self-care.
Not selfish.
Not selfish at all. You can shift your perspective on what you're experiencing. If you're looking at this as a bad thing that's happening, maybe how can you view what's good that's going to come out of it, or something like that helps you see things in a different light.
We were talking about that before we started recording, also shifting your perspective to not look at what you haven't done, but what you have done.
Yes.
Which we also just talked about like 30 seconds ago, but that's just where my brain is.
That's what I was just gonna say.
I am showing all the signs of burnout. I'm just in denial.
You can reduce your stress, right? Can you shift something so that you have less stress in your life?
That's really hard to do.
It is.
First off, identifying your stressors, and then actually shuffling them off, because they're there for a reason, right? Like these things that loom over you. You don't just bring on stressors in your life just to spice things up.
Well, I think too, it's giving ourselves rest, right? If I am in a stressful situation, how can I give myself some rest so that I'm not just plowing through the stress and keeping it at a high elevated level the whole time I'm engaged in whatever I'm doing? So
Right.
I don't think maybe it's not even eliminating it. It's just finding downtime so that you aren't staying at that elevated level all the time.
Some things can wait until tomorrow. So I'm
Yes.
trying to remember to tell myself.
And then the last one, which we've talked about in a previous episode, is seek connection.
Absolutely. Isolating during burnout is the worst thing you can do. I mean, you just mire in it and you get stuck in it and you build this vicious cycle. And we have a whole episode on that, like Jeff said. Go listen.
Yeah. So that's kind of a deep dive into burnout. What do you think? Any questions or?
My only question is to directly combat, sorry, not sorry, the World Health Organization in that, do you think all of these things are, or do you think burnout is solely related to work? Like, can you burn out from life around us? I know we've briefly talked about this at the top of the episode, but I just wanted to deep dive into it a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, if you're caring for a child or caring for a parent or, dealing with a situation with your house, we had a flood in our bathroom into our kitchen. Like, you can burn out on that. I was pretty sick of it after 6 or 9 months of dealing with it. So, yeah, I do think it's possible to burn out on other things.
I agree. A holiday burnout is a thing that I've seen thrown around quite a bit. And I posted about it a lot last year because I went through it. It's just like all of the extra responsibilities that come with life at the holidays are really, really stressful when you're already stressed out at work. And I don't think, like, even if you took away all my work stress, if I was magically unemployed because I won the lottery or something, I think I would still suffer from holiday burnout. And I think a lot of other people would as well. So, but I think all of these, all of the recovery tips that we just went over work for work and non-work related.
Now it's time for burning questions.
Okay, so today our burning question comes from a one-person marketing department that works for an engineering firm, and they believe they're burned out. They want to know, is it their responsibility to try to work their way out of it, or does their employer have any responsibility in helping them out?
First off, did not submit this question. Probably could have in my early career. I think it's a dual responsibility. I think you are responsible personally for identifying your burnout and the sources of your stressors at work so that you can go to your employer and ask for help. I think if you just go to them and say, I'm burnt out, I'm stressed, I know this from personal experience. If you just say I'm drowning, they're not going to know what to do or how to help you. And it might not even be that it's not that they don't want to, but they won't know how. So I think I don't think you have to go to them with a specific solution. I think that's helpful, but I think you need to go to your employer with a specific challenge that you can work through together to overcome.
Yeah, I would agree. And you may not know the answer, but I do think it's really easy to just say, well, I don't know. And so let them figure it out. When I would guess if we moved fear out of our way, we do probably know the answer at some level. Now, we may not know whether they're going to accept the answer or be on board with it. But I do think if we move fear out of the way, we can come up with some ideas that I listen to Darren Hardy a lot, and one thing he does with his staff is don't come with problems, come with the problem, but then also try to have thought of 3 potential solutions to the problem and what your recommendation would be.
We've talked about this because I don't like that because I, as a marketer who's often felt helpless and like, I don't know what the solution is, and I've talked myself into this corner where I'm like, okay, well, here's the problem. And none of the solutions I can think of, like my employer's not going to bite on any of them. So
that's fear.
It is
filtering your solutions.
It is, but the fact that I had to go to them with a solution was just paralyzing. Or if it was something that was beyond me, because I was a little marketing coordinator. I didn't deal with operations. It's like I didn't know how to balance the workload of an entire team. So to think like if I had been told that I would have had to go with a solution for like fixing the marketing department, I never would have spoken up. Not that I spoke up at all, but
But
I
did you
feel
have
like
some ideas on how to fix it?
hire more people.
Okay, right, that's an idea. Well, then we filter that because they're not going to agree to it, or they're not going to accept that as a
Exactly.
solution. So we don't.
Yeah, we already knew they weren't going to do it, so we just didn't say anything.
Right.
But
So
I
say
don't
that.
know. I struggle with the come with a solution. I think it's enough to go to them and I've identified the challenge and ask for help to work through the solution together.
I agree. I do agree with that. But I think just coming in, like you said earlier, I'm burned out. I don't know what to do.
It's not
That's
going to get you anywhere.
hard also, right? Because I don't know. I don't even know what that means.
Right.
Yes, I've heard the term burnout, but they haven't listened to, or unless they've listened to our podcast, they don't know what it means.
Or like we said at the top of the episode, it manifests differently for everyone. Or like we went through the survey, are you disengaged burnt out? Are you overextended burnt out? Are you ineffective burnout? There are different solutions for each type. So
Yeah, and then I think for the person, you do have to kind of reach some idea of what am I willing to accept in this situation, and put that boundary in place so that you can have the conversations, because you may not get what you want. And then, how are you going to protect yourself if the employer is not going to help you?
right.
And that's a good skill to have, whether it's at work or a family or whatever, right? How can we stick to our boundaries better? And even be aware of what our boundaries are, right? We talked about values in the first episode, which helps us define our boundaries.
Exactly. I was just going to say, we've got a whole manual on that.
Man, it's like we have a plan for this or something.
We're trying to help y'all. Any final thoughts on our one woman marketing department, aside from I hope you get the help that you need as being burnt out? And please just at least bring it to your employer's attention.
And I think for that individual, because they are a little bit isolated, finding something like SMPS or something where you can go talk to other people who are experiencing what you are, would be very helpful too, right? Find that community.
Come to Pi. We want you. We're here for you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I think we answered that. So
So.
a friendly reminder to our listeners, if you have a burning question, you can email it to us at burnoutbanter@gmail.com. And again, please remember to like or subscribe to our podcast on Amazon, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen, to make sure you never miss an episode. And thank you, Rochelle, for being willing to take that quiz openly and honestly in front of the world.
Thank you for pointing out that I am burnt out. I'm going to go take a nap.
All right. See y'all later.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.